What is going on, everybody, today? My name is Buddy Blackford, and today we're going to go over using the exposure adjustment command in Photoshop. And what exposure is the amount of light that gets exposed to an image. So what we're going to do is either lighten up or darken up the image pretty much and change the luminance values and color values on an image, and it's going to be in a little bit of a different way than we would get from using something like levels or curves. So Photoshop's exposure adjustment is designed for performing adjustments to 32-bit HDR images, but it also works with 8-bit and 16-bit images as well. So you can use it on pretty much any image you want. So the exposure adjustment changes the image by using what's called a linear color space, and that's called gamma 1.0, and it doesn't use the actual image's color space. So it uses its own color space, which is the gamma 1.0. And when used with HDR images, it gives you the ability to draw like some nice details that might be lost within your highlights or shadows. So if you like to take a picture of something and the sun's blowing out some of the details, then you want to adjust the exposure so you can bring those details back in. So let's start from the beginning by going to Image, and we're going to go to our Adjustments options, and we're going to come here to Exposure. Now you can see that this image has been exposed to extra light and it gives like a little blown out look here and in the background. Now something like this may be a little hard to recover, but maybe we can try to recover it with some of the exposure options. I'm gonna put this over here on the side so it's not in the image, but we can use it here. So let's go over what we see here in the image in the exposure options. First, we have exposure, obviously, and that adjusts the highlight end of the image's tonal scale with little effect in the extreme shadows. We can go next to offset, that darkens the shadows and the midtones and doesn't have as much of an effect on the highlights. So exposure, highlights, and offset is shadows and midtones. So just remember that. We've got our gamma correction here, and it adjusts the image's gamma just using a simple slider here. So remember when I said it uses the gamma 1.0 linear scale? Well, this is it here, and you can adjust that with this linear slider here to adjust your midpoints or like the brightness and things like that. So we've got our we'll just start messing with these real quick. Exposure, remember that is the highlights, and it doesn't affect shadows very much. So let's bring the exposure down because we know we already have a decent amount of highlights. So we can bring that down, and you don't want to make extremely large adjustments with most of your images. However, sometimes you may. So the next thing we're going to do is up the offset. Oh, looks like we'll go the other way. Here we go. You can see it's starting to get a little too crazy when I went with the offset there. So let's try it. Yeah, let's go back. The offset, I'm going to go to 0.025. See how that looks. There we go. I accidentally clicked 0.025. Control Z because I accidentally clicked. Because I have this, I had accidentally clicked on the eyedropper and then clicked off onto something else. So make sure that when you're doing this, you don't accidentally click with the eyedropper. It'll adjust your exposure by setting points. So I might as well go over those real quick. We have the eyedroppers here that will set the black point, the mid-gray point, and the white point, and that'll adjust the overall values for your exposure. So gamma correction, I'm not gonna do too much with that. I'll just move it either way so we can see how this image is being adjusted by gamma correction here. So you can see to the left makes it brighter, and when you start getting these like broken looking edges here, means you went too far. You can definitely see it over here. It looks like it's been spray painted on. That's not good. So that means you definitely started going too far. So pretty much I wanted to go to the right on this. And now I have a different image. So if you click on preview, you can sample and see what's going on here. So I used the exposure and I took out some of the light and made it a little bit of a darker image. Now let's go ahead and set this back to our default here using the preset, and that sets everything back to nothing, or back to 0 to what the image normally is. And I'll show you that we have a couple presets. And now these presets aren't anything too big. All they do is minus the exposure -1, -2, +1, +2. Nothing that great. You can adjust your exposure and adjust your images or your correction and offset and stuff like that, and you can save these for use at another time by clicking on these options here and hitting save preset. And if you do, it goes to your exposure folder. It's like extra dark for this one, and I can go back to my default, and then I can always go back and pick up my preset later and see how the exposure worked out here. So you can pick your presets and create your own presets using this options here. Now the last thing I wanted to go over was the midpoint and dark points here. If you click on one of the points here and select your dark point, it's going to change the overall look of the image, and you can see it changes the offset as well. So you can mess with these and see if you can get something that you really like. So this is like gray area here, and that adjusted that a little bit. And if you want to go extreme, pick something that's not as gray. And let's see what I can get. Oh, looks like, yeah, there we go. So I picked something that was yellow, and you get a whole different like feel. Go to white, and I'll pick something that's fairly white. There's not too much that's really white here. And you can see that brightened up the image when I picked something that was pretty white. And if I pick something that's darker, it's gonna really brighten up the image. So this just sets your white point, so you can experiment with those and use those to your advantage, or as like starting points and things like that. So that's all I wanted to go over with the exposure adjustment. Remember that exposure is means that it's the amount of light that is getting into your image. So you're basically adjusting the amount of light that's going on. So that's all. Thanks for watching this one. Check out buckysroom.org for more tutorials on Photoshop and other things like programming and After Effects tutorials and everything awesome. Hopefully I see you guys there. Have a good one.